of the main things, of course, in order to create size and to create muscle growth, which will sometimes the body will hit a wall. And what that basically means is that the body is saying, look, I know all your tricks. I know you're going to start first with bench press. And then I know you're going to walk over to the chin-up bar and do chin-ups. And then I know you're coming back to the bench press, and then you go to the chin-up bar and come back to bench press. I know that routine. I know exactly everything you do, and I am prepared for that. So you have to go and use the shocking principle.
Arnold believed that eventually your body could learn everything you were doing in the gym. It knew the exercises, it knew the weights, it even knew the order in which everything was coming. And when that happened, Arnold believed that you have to shock the muscle with something completely unexpected. Today, a lot of people would probably call this muscle confusion. But what did Arnold actually mean by that? Was he randomly changing his workouts all the time? Or was there a much more intelligent system underneath all of this madness? And most importantly, should a regular natural lifter train this way? Let's decode it.
I think that everyone knows when they get into training that you're not going to go and become a champion from one day to the next. But the question is, how can I speed up the process? And then the important thing is that you train the proper way, which is to train the basics. That if it is the squats, if the two-arm curl, if it's the bent over rowing, if it's the clean and the press, the bench press, the incline press, the dumbbell press, all of those basic exercises. And that's what you need to do, especially the last 3 months before competition. You got to shock the muscle, and shock the muscle with different kind of training principles.
The first important thing is that Arnold doesn't begin by telling people to change everything. He begins with the basics: squats, bench presses, rows, curls, presses. Those were the exercises that built the foundation of his physique. Then he says that during the final 3 months before a competition, he would introduce different training principles to shock the muscle. That context matters. He isn't necessarily describing the way a beginner should train every week of the year. He's describing what an advanced bodybuilder did when preparing for a contest and trying to push beyond his normal condition. And I think the word confusion can make this sound more mysterious than it really is. The muscle isn't sitting there thinking, oh no, Arnold changed the exercise, I am confused. What he's really talking about is creating a stimulus that the body is not currently accustomed to: a different weight, a different repetition range, a different exercise order, or a much more intense set than normal. That can be useful, but only when there is already a stable program underneath it. Because when everything changes constantly, you don't know whether you are progressing. You are simply doing something different. And different doesn't automatically mean better.
I think that the 3 exercises for chest that I have always done, the first year when I started training and the last year when I was training, is bench press, incline press in different levels. So to start low, medium, and high, and then flies. I mean, to me, the flies was an exercise that gave me the full pectoral muscle development, because I went all the way out and almost hitting the ground. And I was a big believer in expanding the chest as much as possible and giving that stretch, because remember, with muscles, the important thing always is to get the stretch and to get the flex. So to me, that going all the way out with the dumbbells as far as you can to get that stretch, and then to come in and then to have the dumbbells touch and then flex like you're doing the most muscle on top, and then going out again. Those are the kind of exercises to me that were like, you could not replace them with any machine. This was it. One of the main things, of course, in order to create size and to create muscle growth, which will sometimes the body will hit a wall. And what that basically means is that the body is saying, look, I know all your tricks. I know you're going to start first with bench press. And then I know you're going to walk over to the chin-up bar and do chin-ups. And then I know you're coming back to the bench press, and then you go to the chin-up bar and come back to bench press. I know that routine. I know exactly everything you do, and I am prepared for that. So you have to go and use the shocking principle.
This might be the most important part of the entire video. Arnold says that he used the same fundamental chest exercises from his first year of training until his final years. So clearly, his version of muscle confusion did not mean replacing the entire workout every few weeks just because 6 weeks or 3 months had passed. But that is how a lot of people interpret it today. They believe that once they have followed a program for a certain amount of time, they automatically need a completely new routine to shock the muscles again. Arnold is showing us something very different here. The main exercises stayed the same. What he changed was the weight, the repetitions, the order, and the intensity techniques he used when his body had genuinely adapted or his progress had reached a plateau. The foundation stayed consistent: bench press, incline press, flies. What changed was the way he performed the workout: the load, the repetitions, the exercises order, and the intensity techniques. And that is a much more sensible interpretation. You need enough consistency to become stronger and improve your execution. But after a long period of doing exactly the same thing, a carefully chosen change can sometimes give you a new challenge. The problem today, as I mentioned a moment ago, is that some people change the workout before the original program has even had time to work. They change the exercises because they are bored, they see a new technique online, because they have been on it for a certain amount of time, or they have one bad workout and they immediately assume they have reached a plateau. That isn't shocking the muscle. That is just never giving yourself enough time to progress. So, Arnold's real message appears to be much more organized than the phrase muscle confusion suggests. Keep the important exercises, build your strength and technique. Then, when there is a genuine reason, change one part of the stimulus.
The body, and if this chest knows that I'm going to start with 135 and then I go to 225 and do 275, I'm going to go and start now with 315. And I'm going to do 20 reps with 315. And then I'm going to go and have the guys pull off plates. And then I have 225 left. And then I'm going to do another 10 reps. And then I'm going to have them take off another 45-pound plate, and then I have 135 left. And then I'm going to go to do another 10 reps. Or maybe if I can, do 15 or 20 reps. And let's see if the pectoral muscle is used to that. And then all of a sudden you will find that your pectoral muscle is shaking after that, and you don't know what to do because it's cramping and it is being tortured and it is in pain because you have now shocked the muscle.
Okay, this is Arnold's shocking principle at its most extreme. Instead of beginning light and building towards the heavy weight, he says that he would begin with 315 pounds and perform 20 repetitions. Then his training partners would strip the plates while he continued the set. 20 repetitions with 315 pounds, followed by another 10 with 225 and potentially another 15 or 20 with 135 is an extraordinary claim. That is not a small change in repetitions range. That is a completely brutal extended set. What he is describing is essentially a massive drop set. The weight becomes lighter, but the muscle is already exhausted. That allows the set to continue far beyond the point where the original weight could still be lifted. Now, can a technique like this create a different stimulus? Of course. You are increasing the duration of the set, creating an enormous local fatigue and forcing the muscle to continue working. But the recovery cost is also going to be enormous. This is where a regular lifter needs to be careful. You can learn from the principle without copying Arnold's numbers or his total workload. One hard drop set at the end of an exercise might be useful occasionally. Turning every chest workout into this kind of torture session is a completely different decision. The question is not only whether you can survive the workout, the question is whether you can recover from it and continue progressing afterwards.
We many times went into the gym just as one day a week where we went to 110-pound dumbbells and we did dumbbell presses. We did 6 reps. That's all I could do, 6 reps. So we picked up the 100 and did another 6 reps. Put them down and took the 90s and did another 6 reps. And then we picked up the 80s and we went all the way down to the 40s. And barely could do 6 reps then with the 40s. But I can tell you that I did not know where to put my arm because my deltoids were screaming. They were in pain. Why? Because I shocked the muscle. Squats is, I think, the most important exercise to create thighs, big thighs. Squats, rear squats, front squats, leg extensions, lunges, stiff-legged deadlifts, or good morning exercise with stiff legs and a lot of leg curls. Then we sometimes, in order to shock the body and the muscle, we would switch from squats to leg press, to just load up the leg press machine, do a lot of leg press and stuff like that.
Here we see two different versions of the same principle. With the dumbbell press, Arnold keeps the exercise but completely changes the structure of the set. With the legs, he temporarily changes the main exercise from squats to leg press. But notice that the goal remains the same. He's still trying to train the shoulders hard. He's still trying to overload the thighs. He's not replacing a leg workout with something completely unrelated simply because the body needs to be confused. Changing from the squat to the leg press could also have allowed him to push the legs differently. The stability demands are different, the technique is different, and he might have been able to continue loading the thighs without being limited in exactly the same way as he was during the squat. That is where exercise variation can make sense. You are not changing exercises just for entertainment. You are choosing a different movement because it gives you something useful. Maybe it targets the muscle differently. Maybe it is more comfortable on your joints. Maybe it allows you to progress when the previous exercise has become stale. But still, I wouldn't change the main exercises every week. Give yourself enough time to learn the movement and become stronger. Then, when the exercise has stopped serving its purpose, you can make a deliberate change. That is very different from random muscle confusion.
I think the important thing is that you always go all out in every set and that you really, don't save yourself for the next set, because that's another big mistake that a lot of people make. They say, okay, I'm going to do 20 sets, so I better take it easy in the third and fourth set and then the fifth set and then the 10th set because I still have 10 sets to go. But that's the wrong approach. Each set ought to be going all out. So now I've built a certain amount of mass during the year, and I've worked now on certain weak points throughout the year. And now with the combination of the diet and of higher repetitions and more exercises and more sets, take that mass and chisel it down and work on the details. And that's why I call the period before competition the most exciting period, because that's where you really have to concentrate, pay close attention to it every day, look at yourself in the mirror in an honest way, and expose your weak points. That motivates you then. That's what makes you train harder. So you got to expose those weak points.
This is the part of Arnold's system that I find the most difficult to apply literally. He says that even if he's performing 20 sets, every set should be all out. No saving energy, no holding something back for the next set. But if every set is genuinely taken to the absolute limit, the quality of the later sets is almost certainly going to fall. The weight will drop, the repetitions will drop, technique might begin to deteriorate, and the fatigue from the workout will increase very quickly. There is also an important difference between training hard and taking every single set to complete muscular failure. You can perform a very demanding set without reaching the point where another repetition is physically impossible. For most regular lifters, that distinction is important, especially when the program already contains a high number of sets. Then, near the end, Arnold explains that before competition, he used more repetitions, more exercises, and more sets. Again, this shows that the shocking principle was strongly connected to his contest preparation. It was a phase where he was trying to expose weak points and create a different appearance. It wasn't necessarily a recommendation that everyone should increase everything indefinitely. And we also have to separate the training from the diet. More repetitions and more exercises can increase energy expenditure and produce a different training effect. But the reduction in body fat is what allows the muscular detail to become visible. The workout doesn't directly carve new lines into the muscle. The diet reveals the muscle that has already been built. Arnold's shocking principle has value, but only when we interpret it correctly. It does not mean that muscles become bored and stop growing because they recognize an exercise. And it definitely does not mean that every workout should be completely random. Arnold himself kept the same basic exercises for years. What he changed was the way he used those exercises. He changed the weight, the repetitions, the order, and the intensity techniques. And occasionally, he replaced one movement with another that trained the same area differently. That kind of plan variation can be useful, especially for an advanced lifter who has genuinely reached a plateau. But there is also a danger. If you are constantly trying to shock the muscle, eventually nothing is really a shock anymore. It simply becomes your normal level of fatigue. The lesson here for natural lifters is I would keep the main exercises stable for long enough to measure progress. Then, when the progress genuinely slows down, change one variable at a time. At a drop set, change the repetition range, replace one exercise, or slightly change the order. Take the principle from Arnold, you don't need to copy the madness. Do you think changing your routine has helped you break through a genuine plateau? Or do most people change their programs before giving them enough time to work? Let me know in the comments. I am really interested to know how often you change your own training. Arnold's approach is almost the complete opposite of the Mike Menser system we decoded in the previous video. Menser continued removing exercises, sets, and training days. Arnold added new techniques, more variation, and sometimes even more work. But both men were trying to solve the same problem. How do you create enough stimulus to force the body to continue changing? This has been Arnold's muscle confusion system decoded. I will see you in the next one.